is Polyphonic Press, the podcast where two music fans pick a classic album completely at random. Using the patented random album generator, they are given an album to review from a curated list of over 1,000 classic releases, spanning multiple genres. And now onto the show. Here are your hosts, Jeremy Boyd and John Van Dyke.
Hey, welcome to Polyphonic Press. I'm Jeremy Boyd.
I'm John Van Dyke.
And this is a special episode. This is our 100th episode. And what we've done is we've had engineers and construction workers and mechanics and everybody working day and night to put together a special random album generator for us. And basically what we've done is we've... John and I have both chosen 5 albums that have had a significant impact on us and in our music and stuff. And so what we're going to do is every 100 episodes. So this is the 100th episode. Every 100 episodes, we're going to randomly choose an album that either me or John has made an impact on us. So it's sort of a special treat for us to, sort of relax a little bit and listen to an album that we really like. So,
yep.
So without further ado, I guess we'll choose one of our favorite albums.
Absolutely.
So here we go. Here is, let's see what album we're going to be listening to for this 100th episode. And the album we're going to be listening to is The Strokes. Is This It?
Okay.
Yeah, so this is my choice. It's one of the albums that, it was one of the albums that, in that whole era, like when we were teenagers, there were all those bands like the White Stripes and the Strokes. There's that garage rock revival kind of thing. But to give some context, let's take a look at a description of the album. I actually haven't heard this album in a long time, so it'll be kind of cool to revisit it. So basically it says, released in 2001, Is This It? Is the explosive debut album by The Strokes that helped reinvigorate rock music at the turn of the millennium. With its raw production, garage rock revival sound, and effortlessly cool aesthetic, the album quickly became a defining statement of early 2000s indie rock. Julian Casablancas' detached, often distorted vocals paired with choppy guitar riffs and tight, punchy rhythms gave the album a stripped-down but infectious energy. Tracks like Last Night, Someday, and Hard to Explain blend retro influences like the Velvet Underground and Television with modern swagger, carving out a timeless and influential sound. Is This It? Isn't just a debut, it's a cultural reset that marked a new era for rock bands in the 21st century.
All right.
And you've heard this album too, haven't you?
Yeah. I've at least heard parts of it, but I'm pretty sure I've heard it all before. I think so. Anyway, it'd be nice to hear it like all the way through because I haven't heard it probably in like 20 years.
Yeah. So it was released July 30th, 2001, and the genres are indie rock, garage rock revival, and post-punk revival, and the label is released on RCA Records and produced by Gordon Raphael, and there are 11 songs on the album, and it's right when CDs were out, so I don't know about side 1 and side 2, but so I guess what we'll do is we'll listen to the first 5 songs and then we'll listen to the last 6. So if you're listening along, which we do encourage you to do, the album starts with the title track, Is This It? And we'll take a break after the song Someday. And we just want to remind you to check out our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/polyphonicpress, and you can get these episodes the day before they go live, and you can get a shout out during these episodes, and even pick an album for us to review. So lots of cool stuff there. And I guess without further ado, let's get into the album. Here's the first song, Is This It? Okay, and ending the first half of the album with Someday. Yeah, this is bringing back a lot of memory, not memories, but feelings, I guess. It's a nostalgic sort of thing, I guess. Yeah, I forgot how much I love this album. What I like about it, and I know it's part of the garage rock revival, is that it sounds like a band playing. Like there's two guitar players, and at any time you only hear two guitars at most, or it sounds like it's really just raw. Just
it's very pared down.
Yeah. And that's what I've always liked about it. And I think, at this time, like this was 2001, it wasn't really that popular when it came out, but like 2002 and then 2003 is when this music really kind of became what it was. Yeah. But at the time, like when you think about like rock music that was popular, it was all like bands like Limp Bizkit and Creed and stuff like that. And it was still rock, like with guitars, but the production was very shiny. It was kind of overproduced in a lot of ways. Whereas this was like, it's kind of punk, but not really punk, if that makes sense. Like it's punk in it's punk in its ethos of like, we're just gonna make music. We're not gonna worry too much about making it perfect.
Yeah, I can see the Strokes being a little bit closer to punk than some of the other garage bands of that time. They're very definitely of that. Well, they're from New York, so that's, CBGBs was still a thing going on at that time. I don't know whether or not they frequented that club or not, but still, it's that New York kind of punk attitude that you can definitely hear in this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that sort of like that tough street sort of attitude. Yeah, you're right. It's and the one thing that I've learned, like after going to school for audio engineering and learning about production and how to record and everything, knowing that you want to get the cleanest recording possible. And, for the most part, that's true. You want to get it as you want to capture it without distorting the microphone, or like you want to get the highest sonic quality that you can. But with this, there is a lot of distortion on his voice.
Yes.
And that is deliberate. And yeah. I was watching an interview with the producer not that long ago, maybe 6 months or so. And he was saying something like he was like, the singer's name is Julian Casablancas, and he was saying that he was like working with the band and just getting to know him. And he's had this, like, the Julian was saying, no, I want it more dirty, because they were trying to record, and they would go into the control room and listen back and say, it doesn't sound right. It needs to be dirtier. And finally, what he says is, how like you know how your favorite pair of jeans feel That's what I want it to sound like. And that, I think that's the perfect sort of,
Yeah.
The perfect description of what it sounds like. It's like they're worn in. It's like it's not like so distorted that it's hard to listen to, but it's just that sort of that thing, that special thing that's not clean, it's not brand new, but it's not so worn out that you can't wear them anymore. That's just right in that sweet spot.
It's like butter on toast.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a creaminess to it, but it still scrapes as you're applying it, sort of, kind of that. I know what you're. At least that's sort of how I always imagined, like even like a nice guitar tone that's got a little bit of dirt on it. And it's interesting, like the guitars in this are largely pretty clean.
They're pretty clean, but they're clean, but they're gritty.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not like totally fuzzed out, but they're not like super like jazz guitar clean either. It's rock and roll. It's rock and roll guitars. Yeah, it's cool that they I don't know how that garage rock revival scene started, because when you look at like big shifts in music, and you think about like the grunt. Well, I know we talk about it a lot, but there was the punk rock movement of the late 70s, and that was very regional in England and New York. And then in the early 90s, you had the grunge stuff, and that was very regional to mostly Seattle. But they're like the Strokes are from New York. The big four of this movement were from all over the world. The Strokes are from New York. The White Stripes are from Detroit. The Vines were from Australia, and the Hives were from Sweden.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how.
It's got to be the internet.
Yeah, it must be.
It's just that, it just became more of a global phenomenon, whereas like scenes are just a little bit more connected to other places in the world. And that's got to be it. I love all those bands. Oddly enough, I think the Strokes are probably my least favorite out of the four.
Yeah.
But I still like them.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I've always loved the melody play that the Vines always had. There's the Hives have this raw energy that's just kind of unmatched, and the White Stripes have kind of a both, where he's got like he can write songs like Gershwin does, and then but at the same time he has got. I'm talking about Jack White here. He's also got like this, punk attitude, and he appreciates music from like all sorts of different genres and stuff like that, and it comes out in his music, and it was definitely very apparent in the White Stripes. Like, he was doing like jazzy stuff even then. He wasn't necessarily like a jazz guitar player or anything like that, but he had, like I said, maybe like Cole Porter style songwriting in a lot of cases. These guys are a little more straight ahead rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
I find a lot of the songs sound very similar.
Yeah, they do.
But it was sort of a refreshing sound for its time.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I agree. Like a lot of the songs do sound like this is not an album you listen to for like a variety. This is a very specific mood album. This is not like I think the production has a lot to do with that the raw production of just the way it was recorded. It was just it doesn't sound like there's any overdubs here, and they didn't labor over it. And yes, I think that just recording everything in the same space with the same equipment. It doesn't sound like they're like, using a different guitars on each song. And it does end up making the album sound, it's almost like the album is one big song.
Yeah, but not like in a concept album.
Not in a
sense.
concept way, but just sonically.
Sonically, it's got a very, consistent sound going throughout it. Certainly in the first half.
Yeah. Well, I think the song "Hard to Explain." That song, what you'll hear on that is and I thought for a long time that it was a drum machine, and it's got a little more of an electronic sort of feel to it. What it actually is, it's not. There's no synthesizers or anything used on it. It's actually the drummer. I can't remember his name. Fabrizio Moretti. They did the hardware. They recorded him playing the drums, and they actually cut it up to create like a beat out of him playing the drums.
So basically, they sampled him.
They sampled themselves, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I guess they just wanted everything to be, self-contained. So even when they try to step outside of the sound, they end up,
sort of almost like making it even more consistent in some ways.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit strange. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's really suffering too much from any of this sort of thing, but I can definitely see how some people might come along and think this album might be a little bit, I don't know. I don't think boring's the right word, but it's not as dynamic as some others.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. It definitely does have a sound. And I don't quite remember. I don't think there is I don't think there's really a slow like ballad sort of song. But you could say that it's the same thing about like AC/DC and
of course,
it's not a bad thing to have a sound, and especially when it's a unique sound. Like when you hear this, it's unmistakably the Strokes, and they're not there. You can definitely hear the influences, but I don't think they're not like trying to copy anybody.
No, it's funny. You mentioned AC/DC, and I remember I think it was Angus Young was in an interview at some point, and the interviewer was like, a lot of people seem to think that you only really have one song. And Angus Young was like, yeah, but it's a good one, isn't it?
That's perfect response.
Yeah.
That's perfect response. Now I do have to say, I did just say that they're not trying to copy anybody, but it did occur to me that the song Last Night was directly influenced by American Girl by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And they actually said, yeah, we were basically trying to rewrite that song.
Yeah, but it doesn't come off sounding too much like it.
No, you can definitely hear there's some elements to it, but they made it their own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think, what was it? Tom Petty, just on the album after their first album, second album, You're Gonna Get It. The song I Need to Know was supposed to be sort of like, was a Land of a Thousand Dances that they claimed it would be, but again, it came out sounding nothing like it. But you can hear just that. Yeah, exactly. But even the fact that it's just it somehow I never made the connection before until it was actually said.
Yeah, nothing's original.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I did find a few pretty interesting facts about the album. So I did know this. It's the song New York City Cops was removed from the American release out of sensitivity following the September 11th attacks. The lyrics criticized the NYPD, and the band replaced the track with When It Started for the US edition.
Yeah, I was familiar with you. Like, I was definitely familiar with some of the songs on this album. I've never been like overly familiar with the Strokes and stuff like that, but I remember listening to I guess was this album, but with a different cover on it. It just seemed like a different album. I don't know.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I didn't know that this was an alternate cover for a long time. And speaking of the cover did cause controversy. The original UK cover, featuring a stylized nude image of a woman's hip and gloved hand, was deemed too provocative for the US market. American copies instead used a digitally manipulated image of a particle collision from a bubble chamber. And I believe that the reason they did this cover, it's a reference to Spinal Tap.
Oh yeah, Smell the Glove.
Smell the Glove, yes.
Where Fran Drescher gives them a dressing down about the overt sexistness of their cover. Yep.
And this is kind of interesting and not that surprising. It was initially rejected by major labels. Despite its now iconic status, several major labels passed on the album early on. It was finally picked up by Rough Trade in the UK and RCA in the US, largely due to the buzz around the band's live shows and their debut EP.
Yeah, I think it's, again, it was a little bit different of its side. This is 2001, and it's pre-9/11. So the garage rock sort of sound was still very much in its infancy, and I don't think most labels knew what to do with it yet, which is a little bit strange because it's not like it's something completely new for them to. It just was something that at the time they were not used to trying to, promote again. It wasn't clear to them that this was a thing that they should be, getting on board with.
Yeah. And, that's the thing about record labels is they don't see, sometimes they don't trust the general public.
No.
They don't trust that if something is good, maybe it will sell. Give it a chance. Obviously this is good, but they said, well, and I get it in 2001. How do you market this to like Limp Bizkit fans? But just put it out and just see what happens.
Sometimes they forget there's a bunch of people who are not Limp Bizkit fans, and they, I was never much of a Limp Bizkit fan. It was just a little bit outside of what I understood it just wasn't my kind of rock and roll. And when this came along, it was way more up my alley.
Exactly. And you definitely weren't the only one with that feeling because it became very popular. And
around that time I was listening to like much older stuff and a lot of older stuff like Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and stuff like that became popular again around that time.
Yeah, and this was much closer to that than
exactly.
And what like record companies don't, I don't know how to say it. Like they don't know how to, they can't see potential. It doesn't sound like what's popular now, so that means it'll never be popular. But all it takes is one, and RCA stepped up And so the album, another effect is the album was recorded with minimal takes and vintage gear. Producer Gordon Raphael used an old computer and basic equipment in a modest studio to capture a raw, lo-fi sound. Most of the vocals were recorded through a PV practice amp to create Julian Casablancas' signature distorted tone. That was what I was remembering. Yeah, they didn't. So a lot of the time, when you record vocals, you have the mic going directly into the recording console. I know you know this. I'm just saying it.
Yes.
So it's interesting that they put it through a guitar, his vocals through a guitar amp to get that distorted raw sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, even when I was when I was in college, I was struggling for a speaker for something and I wanted to put on the radio for some reason. I can't remember, but I put it on and I plugged it into my, big Fender Super Twin, heaviest amp ever, at least of its size. And it came out, there's a certain distorted sound to amplifiers that just doesn't, it's not the clear, even when you have like no settings set on anything like that. It just has this like, it's not a compressed sound, but it's almost like a blaring sound, and it's very unrefined. So trying to listen to like, things that have been like orchestrated or things that are like supremely clean or something like that, trying to play it through an amplifier and then pick up that sound with another microphone and send that into an amp, you're going to wind up with something very different. And it's just one of those tricks. You just have to know that that's the nature of the equipment. A lot of producers will not like that.
No.
But if you're looking for something a little bit different, give it a shot, because it's actually it gives an interesting sound.
You never know. Don't be afraid to experiment. The last one is it jump started the 2000s garage rock revival. Is widely credited with launching a wave of early 2000s bands, including the Libertines, Arctic Monkeys, and Kings of Leon. Its cool, back-to-basics style influenced a generation and reshaped indie rock's mainstream appeal.
Yeah, those bands all sound closer to this, too.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think it even, like, helped finally when there's, like... Because even what, like, the White Stripes were doing, they were very still underground at this period. They didn't really have their push until 2003's album, Elephant. But yeah, I don't know if that album would have been accepted by a major label if this wasn't accepted by a major label first.
Yeah, this wasn't the first album in that, but this was the first one that caught on. This was the one that people the attitude started to shift. It's like, oh, there's actually some interesting music going on.
Yeah, exactly. White Stripes' first album, I think, was like 1997 or 99 or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, so a couple years before.
Exactly.
Before this, yeah.
But Elephant being the third album, that's what took them off. And then I can't remember when exactly the Hive's first album was, but I think it was like 2002 even or something like that. It may have even been before.
Yeah.
I can't remember. And again, the fourth band out of that, the Vines, I think came out the same year as this.
Yeah.
In Australia?
2002. Actually, July 2002, almost exactly a year.
Okay.
After this one. Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely helped. And again, it put Australia a bit into the spotlight too, because I don't know if the Vines weren't as popular, I don't know if bands like Tame Impala and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard really would have had too much of a push either after that.
Yeah. And then Jet, remember Jet?
Jet was another.
They were from Australia too.
Pretty good Australian band, and they're very simple, straight ahead rock and roll, in the AC/DC tradition, sort of.
Exactly. Yeah. This album was the start of all of that. So those were some cool facts about the album. But I guess we'll get back into the second half. But before we do that, let's hear from our friends over at the Album Nerds podcast. So check those guys out.
We'll now take a few seconds before we begin side 2. Thank you. Here's side 2.
All right, and ending the album with "Take It or Leave It." Yeah, this is definitely. I'm reminded of how much I love this album. Again, like I said, they're a great band. You've got And one thing that's actually cool too is they're still going. They've not lost any members. It's still the original lineup.
That's interesting.
Which is rare.
It is rare.
But then you've got Julian Casablancas on vocals, Nick Valenci on guitar, Albert Hammond Jr. on guitar, Nikolai Freiture on bass, and Fabrizio Moretti on drums. New York Italian guys, a lot of Italian names there, but I mean, they're just they're definitely a New York band. You can tell, you can hear it in their sound. It's almost a British sound, but not quite. It's too New York to be British, but it's just.
A lot of British bands have obviously been influenced by this, but they've also been influenced by. Well, I think it's more the other way, like this album influenced a lot of British bands that came after this.
Well, I know the Arctic Monkeys. They said specifically this album was their biggest influence for putting their band together. And this album was huge in the UK before it was big in the United States. Mm-hmm. So they were hip to it like a year, almost right when it came out. I remember what I like. I remember how I got into it. I remember seeing the music video for Last Night on TV somewhere. It was either Much Music or Much More Music or something, and it blew my mind. It really was like, holy shit! There's a new band that's playing music the kind of music that I like. It's like, what is happening? Because up until that point, I think other than Sloan, I wasn't really into newer music that much. Yeah, I was.
Me neither.
Kind of, yeah. And then when I saw that, it's like, what? There's a new band that sounds like the old bands? Like,
yeah, exactly. And then a bunch of them started popping up. Yep.
That was my first exposure to that. I'm most definitely like late 2002 or early 2003, and it's like, whoa, okay, this is really cool.
Yeah, I was listening to the radio around that time. I think it was One Out of Barrie, Rock 95. And I was hearing a lot of stuff like, Nickelback and whatever on the radio and stuff like that. But they were playing other older stuff as well. And I was like listening for the older stuff. And then they started playing stuff like the White Stripes and other things like that. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. That's how I got into the garage rock scene, and I think it was the White Stripes. It was probably the first for me that sort of opened up the new music, which is now 20 something years old.
Yeah, Jesus. And I think maybe that's why. Like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think maybe your favorite band of that era is the White Stripes.
Yeah, up there.
Yeah, and mine is probably the Strokes, and I think it probably is because that's our first exposure to that
stuff. Yeah, but I could appreciate, well, the Black Crowes were still going at that time too, but they were already a good decade old.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
it was that time, and I remember I got the CD and listened to it quite a bit. And then I got all of those CDs. I got the White Stripes, and I don't know. I might have gotten the Vines and the Hives. I know I got Jet. There was this other band, and that was the other thing. Is there was this show, the OC, which was pretty big. And one of the cool things about that show is they had a club that they would go to, and you would see these bands on TV, a lot of these indie rock bands. So that's how I discovered a lot of the music too. And so it was a really exciting time to like be into this really cool music that's new. And it's like, oh, I remember feeling like, oh, this is for me. Like, this is the music for me. Like, I didn't really connect with like the Creed and all those bands. That was a little bit before my time. but it's like, oh, this is my music. This is new stuff for me. And I still love the old stuff, obviously, but it's like it was exciting to know that there was new that new music was being made that was really interesting.
Yeah. And it just made me want to dig further.
Oh, exactly.
Through the White Stripes, I learned about a whole bunch of like his contemporaries and stuff like that. Like the Black Keys came along, and the Greenhorns were very straight out of they were like a 60s revival sort of thing going on, but not strictly.
Not strictly, yeah. Definitely influenced, but yeah, they were doing their own thing too.
Yeah. But, and trying to think of other ones from that period. There was just a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that it didn't. I mean, yeah, it doesn't last. It can't last. It can't last. But it's like no music scene or genre is popular forever. But it was around for a good 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Depending on the band, you can stretch it even further. But yeah. Yeah, like, what am I thinking of? Yeah, it sort of bleeds into some of the other stuff that came along later, like what Australia has been doing and they've been still doing. Although I think it sort of calmed down a little bit again. But, there's, for a while there, especially before COVID, there was a lot of stuff coming out of Australia that was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it opened my ears to listening to newer stuff again. And, I try very hard not to become the bitter old man that doesn't listen to anything new. And it's very hard sometimes when it's very hard to connect with anything that's coming out lately. Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, I try. My position I've taken is just because I don't connect with the new stuff doesn't mean it's not connecting with someone. And
of course.
And so I try that's sort of keeping me from being like the old man, these damn kids kind of thing. It's okay. If it's connecting with someone, then it's valid and I can appreciate it for that. It may not be my thing, but at least like I'm never going to be someone to judge somebody for listening to, because I know how it feels when a song connects with you, and if a song or an artist connects with someone and it doesn't connect with me, but I still know what that feels like. And so yeah, it is hard to remind yourself of that sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll ask the question of would we listen to it again in these episodes, because it's kind of like a no-brainer.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, but what would be like your three highlights?
3 highlights. I was going through it as we were listening to it, and I think my 3 highlights are all in the second portion of the album, starting with "Alone Together." I think that was a really, really good song. I like "Trying Your Luck." I also like "Taking Your Leave It." But what would I pick as my 3? "Alone Together" I'm going to pick as my first pick. And then I'm probably going to go with "Last Night" and then "Trying Your Luck." I think that's what I'm going to.
Yeah. I think I would probably go with I really like "The Modern Age." I think I have to pick "Last Night" because that was the one that was my gateway to
intro.
This. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I think I'd probably go with "Take It or Leave It." That was just I always like the high energy of that song. So anyway, there we have it. There's our 100th episode. Just want to say thank you for listening and sticking with us through the first 100 episodes. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. We've got like over 1,000 albums to get through, so we're probably going to be around for the next 20 years at least, If you do the math, 1,000 albums, 52 weeks a year, that's about 20 years. So, so yeah, we're not going anywhere, but it is cool to sort of reflect and hitting 100 episodes is a pretty special thing. So, thank you. We just want to say thank you to you for listening and for sticking with us this far. We really appreciate you for listening. Anything you want to say?
Keep your burgers on the grill. I don't know. All that you said, I can't think of adding anything to that. But we'll see if we can stick it out for 20 years. That's a high calling. We'll see.
We'll shoot for 19. And
yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, yeah. So thank you for listening, and leave us. Get in touch with us if you've been with us from the beginning. We would love to hear from you. You can go to the contact page on polyphonicpress.com, and just send us a message. We would love to hear from you. I think if you're listening, if this is your first episode, give us a follow and leave a rating and a review, because it really helps people discover the show. And I can't think of anything else. I think that just about does it. I'm Jeremy Boyd.
And I'm John Van Dyke.
Take it easy.